Greetings and salutations. My name's James Elden, and welcome to this episode of the Playwright Spotlight, in which each episode we invite a playwright on to talk about the tricks of the trades and the craft of playwriting. If you're new here, be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and leave a comment down below. And if you're listening to us on your favorite podcatcher, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. My guest today is author of the full-length plays Heels Overhead and Hope Throws Her Heart Away. She has been commissioned by the Steppenwolf Theatre and was a Djerassi Resident Artist, as well as a resident writer at Rising Sun's Governor's Island Laboratorium for 3 summers. She was nominated for the Denver Drama's Critics Circle Award and made the Denver Post 10 Best list. Her work has been included in the Best American Short Plays 2014-2015, Best 10-Minute Plays 2016, and 105 5-minute plays for performance and study. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Susan Goodell. How are you?
Hi, James. Great. So happy to be here.
Thanks for coming on to the Playwright Spotlight. How long have you been a playwright?
Oh my goodness. I almost admit my age, longer than I want to admit being a playwright, but let me see, since about I started chipping away at this around 1980, something like that.
Okay. All right. And what made you want to write plays? What got your start?
It was almost happenstance. Around that time, there was, I don't know whether it's still there, there's a institution in Denver, Colorado called Denver Free University. And I availed where a lot of people who just decide they want to try, people in the community who decide they want to try to do it, teach. And I happened to fall in a class with a woman named Laura Shamus, who later became a teacher at Pepperdine University, get her PhD. But this was her first outing, so I was one of her guinea pigs. But around that time, I was taking a lot of classes at Denver Free University, everything from dog obedience to light cooking. And playwriting somehow stuck. I got enough encouragement and discouragement that I kept going.
What was the encouragement and what was the discouragement?
Oh my goodness. Well, the encouragement was I quickly dashed off a full-length play, not doing what I was doing. And the full-length play was kind of a expression of angst resulting from a job I had where I was on a government contract, and it was very bureaucratic, and I saw a lot of people chasing their tails and running in circles. Unfortunately, it was the stereotype of the government working experience, which I don't think always applies, but it did here. So I wrote a play just expressing my annoyance and frustration and sense of irony about everything that went on, just dashed it out. I don't know whether it's in a drawer or disappeared entirely, but it got a reading at Denver's Changing Scene Theater, and that's actually another expedition. And my teacher, Laura, set that up, and it turned out nicely that I ever deserved. I got one of Denver's wonderful actors, a guy named Pat Mahoney, who was a great comic actor who could read the phone book and get a laugh, and he did. He got many laughs. Some other really good people. A co-worker at the advertising agency I worked at designed a program, and there was a celebration afterwards with champagne. So it was really a wonderful experience, and never mind the fact that the play was not something I'd ever show anyone again. Oh yes, and Laura also arranged for the literary manager of the Denver Center Theater to have a meeting with me where he actually encouraged me. Okay. But the play never went any further, so I guess that was the discouragement.
Was there any other things that were discouraging while you were first starting out?
Well, yeah, I mean, the play didn't get any productions beyond the reading. Let me see, a director quit.
Oh, wow.
I pulled someone who was not an experienced director, and she quit, and I had to get a last minute replacement. So I already
why did she quit?
She quit. It was a argument over a very silly argument over a character, and I think it was really that she really wasn't a director. I don't know. I was again young and inexperienced, and I think I just grabbed someone I thought had done a little bit of theater to direct it, and I think she was in over her head, so I got someone else. But
how involved were you in that process?
I went to it might have been rehearsed once, once or twice, probably once. But I believe I went to rehearsal. And yes, I was involved, and actually, I stayed involved in many of my earliest productions where I went to all the rehearsals, and wasn't interfering so much as trying to learn something. Somehow either someone told me or I had a voice in my head, sit in rehearsals, you're going to learn something. And I knew I had a lot to learn, so I did.
What did you learn?
What did I learn? I learned about process. I learned how terrifying it is when actors first get a book. I learned that it's a very slow barn raising, and to respect everyone. And I think I learned a lot about the courage it takes to do live performance, and to start having respect for, but have respect for other people, and that we're all, that it's not just my problem, it's everyone's problem. So I sort of started to learn about the whole web of what goes into bringing a play to life.
Did you learn anything more about playwriting by being in that process as well?
I'm sure I did. I probably saw what worked and what didn't work. I don't know whether this is relevant to playwriting, but there was one, usually this doesn't happen. There was one, actually this is a different production, but anyway, I'll just tell the story. Anyway,
Sure.
There's one woman who was cast, and she was cast because I referred to the character as absolutely more gorgeous than anyone else. And of course, all the other actresses in the play were attractive, so she had to try and get a standout. And she got someone from a modeling agency who was tall, and the rest of the women would be jealous of her. And unfortunately, she was the least experienced one. And she struggled, and she struggled, and she struggled. And the minute the play was in the theater and the lights in the last rehearsal, all of a sudden she lit up and she got it. But
it's funny how that's always the case, you know.
No, it's not always the case. But I did learn that people I did learn something from this, that actors can have different rates of growth. Sometimes they can just nail it quickly, nail it in auditions, and other times they have to struggle a little bit or a lot. And the idea is to support that in any way I can. Support that. Often just talking to the director depends on the process.
Sure. And I guess what I mean by that I think that's always the case, and this is a terrible habit. As an actor, for me, it's always been like directors have always been like, hey, look, I need to see that you can get there. It's like, no, it'll be there. I'll give it to you in performance. Now, when you get back on the other side, and then of course you step up. And then when I got on the other side, I'm like, look, when I started directing, I'm like, look, I need to see that you can go there. And I get the same response. So I get both sides of the coins. You don't want to give it all right there during rehearsal, but that's
right.
That's neither here nor there.
And it's frightening, and you just don't know what you have until the lights turn on. But yes, I've seen first read-throughs where everyone is sort of muttering into their books, and you figure, okay, I think they're just kind of mulling this over, and I'm going to be cool about it and be gracious and have faith.
Do you still, during all that time, or even still now, do you still get nervous that's not going to come to fruition? Like that little like, oh boy. Or have you learned to like, I know they're going to get it. This is a feeling that I know will, surpass because it's only the first, or do you always get those little butterflies?
Oh, I get some butterflies. I guess the answer to your either or question is yes. I do my best to put on my poker face and just go, this is, be very supportive and enjoy what's going on, and at the same time I hope this comes together. So I try not to show it.
So you finished this program,
mm-hmm.
and then you stuck it out. So where did you go from there? What was what?
Let me see the next. So I had the playwriting of the changing scene, and the changing scene, incidentally, is a kind of an interesting Google. I can be a bit digressive. Is that all right?
Sure.
Do my the changing scene was an experimental theater in downtown Denver, Colorado, started by two New York expatriates. All of a sudden I'm forgetting names. I will in a minute. Al and Maxine, and I'll remember their names in a minute. They were in downtown Denver, and they were sort of dance instructors and aging hippies, and they lived in a loft in downtown Denver before anyone else was doing it, and had a theater in their loft home, and did completely experimental work, and quite a bit of it had a lot of performances. They served cappuccino in Denver before anyone else did, and people just sort of gravitated toward them. So it was quite an unusual experience, and you could just kind of sort of hang out with Al and Maxine, and Al would smoke his cigarettes and talk about life and theater and this sort of stuff, and people would cluster around, and it was sort of Denver's salon for a number of decades. So I was lucky to have that experience, just to be in there. But anyway, the next one was that.
This, you said it was called Changing Scenes. Is that
Scenes,
so? What did you do there?
Well, see, I had a reading, and then later on, and jumping a bit, I was in a festival called Summer Play, which I actually named, and that was a group of playwrights who got together and kind of lamented the fact that the Denver community needed more unity, and they invited playwrights from various places and stratas to contribute a one-act play to a festival, which ran over 3 weekends. They had 3 different bills, and I had one play in there, which at the time was called Crumble. And anyway, actually, the changing scene eventually closed, and a woman named Pavlina Morris revived it in Washington State. So it's now the Changing Scene Northwest. And she also revived Summer Play, and my play before the pandemic, with the name changed to A Sonnet to Chow Mein, and the benefit of my new wisdom and better editing was performed there. So anyway, the Changing Scene continues from the old Denver days in the loft in downtown Denver.
Very nice. You said editing and wisdom from that place. So talk to me about that. What did you, so do you find that it you needed to edit it?
Oh yes. I mean, it was Crumble, the play I wrote, it was much longer. It might have been about 40 minutes, and I think it was again for what I thought was the time, what they wanted, the time requirement, and I edited it down to about 25 or 30 minutes, and I just found a lot of redundancy and dialogue that just didn't, the action stuck on one place for too long.
Expand on that. Talk to me about that, just for playwrights that are out there that have a problem letting go of certain things that they're attached to.
Well, I think one of the many problems in writing a play or a script or another story is what information you give and when you give it, and how long do you stick on one plot point. And I'll add, I kind of enjoy trying to be a bit elliptical, where I sort of hide information or give as few clues away, but have the audience still get it. Sometimes I do that.
How do you do that?
My goodness.
Is there a process in that, or is there a formula? I mean, I'm fascinated by this.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of an example, but okay, I just don't come out and say something. Okay, I'll just think. I'll give you a parenthetical. Instead of a boy telling a girl he likes her, he might say, "Gee, I loved that pink blouse you're wearing," or something like that. That might be a bit elliptical.
Okay.
But they're hints. I mean, again, and I think that's a lot of the fun in writing. And again, to be slightly digressive, almost any romantic story, they often don't come out and say they like each other, but the audience knows it.
Sure.
So maybe that's what I mean by elliptical. But there are many examples of it.
When you come up with an idea,
mm-hmm.
How do you start? What happens once that idea comes into your head? What's the next step for you?
Well, I'm trying not to be too sassy about it, but almost ideas, it's almost like narrowing down the universe. I can get a lot of ideas and put them down and decide I don't want to commit to it. So it's almost a matter of choosing what in the universe that I want to live with for quite a while. And I think the criteria for that is whether it's a loaded topic, whether it's something that's mysterious, whether it's something that I might call radioactive, where I think there's going to be a lot of complication and a lot of question and a lot of material there. And that I can bring in a lot of conflict and maybe other situations, and that's what I'm going to settle down and live with for a while. From there, it depends on. I've written a lot more short plays than long plays, but I often do kind of my own version of what in the business world is known as brainstorming. Well, I'll write down an idea, and then I'll write just kind of shoots from it, a word association or thought association or possible complications. I think I did that with a play that was in your festival, where I write down a number of possibilities, and then maybe one, or if it's scary, more than that might attract me, and then I'll start figuring, okay, now how am I going to show this? And from there, try to settle down with characters in a situation. So it is brainstorming by myself, essentially.
Okay. And then do you write linearly, or?
Yes, so far I've written linearly. I'm actually in a Zoom group right now where one of the writers is just writing some scenes and throwing them against the wall and deciding what's interesting and where it's going to go. So I've seen that done, and I'm certainly open to the idea if I get stuck and have an idea from another part of the play, I'll do that. And I will say one of my full-length plays, Hope Throws Her Heart Away, started with exercises. And it wasn't until it was further along that it became a linear play, though it's not conventionally structured in the leads.
What are those exercises that you were doing?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I have taken, I'm kind of the girl who's taken classes. I have taken so many classes, not just playwriting classes, but creativity classes and be spontaneous classes and heaven knows what else. And many of them involve writing exercises, acting classes. I took a couple of acting classes in New York, wrote exercises for that. So I wrote exercises, or something happened. Every once in a while I'd sit down and write a monologue. One time I was upset with a boss, and I actually wrote a monologue from that, and it involved her getting upset because the white paper clips were not on the presentation. And so I wrote a monologue including the white paper clips, just close the door and type something out furiously. And the white paper clips are still, the job is long ago, but the white paper clips still live.
Sure.
So that one was an expression of various things that went on in my life. Almost like a dramatized blog, actually.
Are there exercises that you still use to this day?
I haven't. No, actually, okay. I guess I have done the stuff recently. I've written most or all of my short plays from prompts, and I'm jumping around in chronology a bit. But I've been in theater artist workshop. A woman named Jamie Callan brought in an exercise called the Word of the Week, where we had to write something, opted to write something that had included a particular word. I liked the kookier words like trapeze, which began a whole story about being in an unknown tropical country, and the trapeze was a parrot was on a trapeze. I didn't want to do the conventional. So,
sure.
It brought me to an exotic unnamed land with a parrot on a trapeze. But I wrote one right after September 11th with the word sharp in it. It was maybe 2 weeks after September 11th, and it turned out to be a sardonic play about battling neighbors. Also including the concept I heard on CNN, is your enemy's enemy your friend? So I kind of took off on that, but and I still will do those exercises. Rising Sun has given us a few during the pandemic. In fact, we had a big drawing and a virtual wheel spinning, and throwing a lot of disparate elements into something that we wrote on a short time frame. So yes, I still will do those from time to time. Talk
about that exercise. There are prompts that you throw in, and then you draw it.
Yeah, there was actually, I don't know how, Akia is the artistic director. She somehow found this virtual wheel, and I think there was a committee that came up with the various possibilities. And then she had some kind of wheel, and we had a setting and a prompt and a name, and we had to throw all those into a play. Do you have an example? Let me see, what was it? It was sort of the Queen of Spring. It was some kind of, it was some mythical character that represented the spring god, and I can't remember what the other requirements were, but I ended up writing about a spring festival in a small town, and the spring festival, almost everyone in the festival had up and quit. So I was writing about the few people trying to keep the tradition going, and so forth. And it was put together on Zoom. Why did they quit the festival? They quit. Well, it was just squabbling. Personalities and squabbling in small town gossip, and an overbearing character that no one else liked, who was never met but discussed, and so forth. Okay, got it. I didn't realize that was the play and not the actual festival that you were doing. Oh no. This went great. It was about one of those situations where everyone was mad at each other and so forth. I thought you had a bunch of playwrights that all of a sudden in the Zoom festival decided to up and leave because of squabbling. I had a great time with the actors and so forth. What is the best advice you've ever gotten as a playwright that's helped you out, that you wish you would have, that just made everything easier? Best advice that I received, and actually I came up with some advice of my own. Great, let's hear it. But I think maybe the best advice I received, that came off the top of my head, I've received a lot of advice, taking all warranted or unwarranted. Yes. But maybe the best advice I received was trust the process, because one is in the weeds one can be in the weeds for a very, very long time, and just have to kind of put it together piece by piece.
What is the process?
The process is like just coming up with a germ of something is something that looks like it would have potential, radioactive, and then building on that, deciding who might be involved in it, and why are they clashing with one another. I mean, in terms of process, again, I'm digressing. I hope that's okay.
Sure.
I think it's coming up with either a dilemma, again, something I read in a book, or a riddle.
Expand on that.
A riddle. I think a riddle would be something that is going on that is not, I don't understand, and an audience wouldn't understand, and then trying to find an explanation for it. I think I can come up with an example from a teleplay that I just saw recently. Again, one of the series that's on our so pervasively on our streaming services these days. There's a podcast called The Shrink Next Door about a psychiatrist patient who falls under his spell and practically gives him his company and his country house and all that. And it was under his sway for nearly 30 years, and it became a series. So the writer had to come up with a step-by-step reason why all these things would happen when they did the dramatic version of the real story. Well, I'm not necessarily going to base something on a real story, but I still need to do the step-by-step, is exploring the riddle and taking it one step at a time to explain how something occurs.
Okay. And then you said that you came up with some advice of your own. What is that?
My own, yes. One of them would be going to your, is your advice good or bad? Never take notes from someone wearing a cape. And don't procrastinate with high-calorie snacks would be maybe my two principal hard-to-learn lessons.
Expand on that last one.
Oh, the high-calorie snacks. Yeah, it's not healthy to, if you're going to stall and get full of angst, it's not good to overeat.
Got it.
Find some other way to step away from things a bit.
The procrastination and the resistance.
The procrastination, the resistance, which always happens, yeah.
Are there things that you still struggle with as a playwright?
Oh, all the time. Well, the things I struggle with in general, you can see the gray hair, and I have what I call my health annoyances. So it's often hard to get going. I have other things I need to get done in the house, and then there's a lot of fun things out there. Everything from social media to well, I don't know. Keeping up with politics isn't fun, but it can be a big distraction is to read on a topic all that I can and so forth.
How do you fight that? How do you fight the resistance and procrastination?
Well, in my case, I've most successfully, and again, this could be good and bad, but belong to groups, theater workshops. I've taken a lot of classes where we're asked to bring a certain number of pages, and even though there's not they're not college classes or classes for credit, I just feel that I want to keep up with my end of the bargain and keep up the momentum from my side of the table. So that keeps me going. I've been in theater workshops, again, words of the week, trying to bring things in, doing things for Rising Sun, and now I'm in a Zoom group that's truly international, and try to have things for that. So I think that's it. Is giving myself some light external pressure helps me turn off the news and turn off reading about some some controversial topic and getting me back to my writing.
Good. Being an international group, do you find, because the approach to theater is different all over, did you learn some new things from international playwrights? That's maybe kind of not obscure, but
Oh, different. Actually, in this case, the member got her MFA from I think it was Iowa and lived in the States. And I don't know where she is from originally, but she's back in Australia. So we're international, but she's definitely U.S. inflected and so forth. So I really can't say, but we have to deal with the time zones for
sure.
That's
Sure.
a big challenge.
But are there style aspects that you've learned, or a different approach to playwriting from these international playwrights, or is it pretty much universal?
Well, in her case, there wasn't anything different. I guess the only thing I can say is I've read on the internet when I'm searching for opportunities that the Brits have something called they call scratch nights. So it sounds like they do a lot of development and informal presentation and so forth. And also they do plays in pubs, which is something I can't imagine. I can't imagine in the United States being in a bar and having everyone settle down and say, okay, we're going to listen to dialogue now. But apparently that's something they do in pubs in the UK.
I know that the one thing they do have here, they do the moth nights or the story time thing.
Right.
They do it in the pubs, but I think that's a little bit different than watching somebody's perform, like a group perform. I don't know. I'm not quite sure that I could see it working here either, to be honest with you. I mean, it could be completely wrong.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, that's just, I'm right there with you, I think.
The bar constituency is very different than the people who will be quiet and listen to a play. So.
It's along the same lines, but completely different. There was a film festival that we participated in Garden Grove, and the venues were bars. They played it on the screens, but I'm like, not the people that were coming in to eat weren't there for the festival. So it's really kind of distracting, because it's like you're trying to watch your film. People are there to dine and talk. They're talking. So, and then we're talking during somebody else's film. I'm like, this is kind of rude, guys. We should be watching. So it was a very novel idea. It was just poorly executed. I just don't see how that, and to do live theater, it's almost as bad as dinner theater, when you get the forks clanking around on the plates and stuff like that.
Maybe it tells us something both about the crowd that goes to pubs, which is likely a different skew than the young crowd that will go to bars in big cities or whatever. And I'm generalizing. Someone might correct me on this. And the UK attitude towards play development. There are two elements to that.
And it's called Scratch Nights. And what does that entail?
Well, I haven't participated in it. Okay. I have had plays in pubs, and I didn't go. I was told about it. Someone did a Twilight Zone theme evening more than once.
Oh, nice.
Maybe 2 or 3 of them.
And was that actual Twilight Zone episodes, or were those just the style that?
The style that he was looking. Right.
And did you participate in that?
Yeah, I had a play in that. I had a play about a magical pie. It was from one of my words of the week. It was the word. If I could talk a little bit about how something came about.
Yeah, absolutely, please.
The prompt was the word lime, and I played around with it a while, and all I could come up with was key lime pie. So from there, key lime pie. I don't know, to me it's kind of an everyday dessert. So what I saw in my head was a dingy diner, key lime pie, and then somehow the key lime pie became had gotten a reputation on the internet as having magical properties of giving someone wealth and good luck. From there, I got two seekers, a man and a woman who were engaged, and the guy was very ambitious, and the girl was skeptical. And then there was the Flossie, the world-weary waitress who helped them and who heard about this pie on the internet. And it turned out the pie was only magical if you could only stick to one bite. So here we got the complication and the 10 minutes and everything else from the word lime. And,
nice.
and that became my Twilight Zone play.
It reminds me of the William Shatner episode when they go to the diner and there's the fortune telling machines.
I haven't seen that. Right.
Yeah, you have or you have not seen it?
I haven't seen it. No.
Oh, it's a brilliant episode. They keep going back and they put the penny in and they get this fortune, and all these things keep happening where they get addicted. They keep going back because they think it's everything that this machine is telling them is true. It's a very, very fascinating episode. It's a lot of fun. You talk about going on the internet and looking for opportunities.
Yes.
Is there certain places you go, or do you just Google playwriting competitions?
My goodness, I will answer that is yes and yes, and I will say with a caveat, you can and I have spent an awful lot of time doing that, and then I just kind of dropped the whole thing during the pandemic, and I don't know what my regrouping is going to be, but there is official playwrights group of Facebook. There's right. Playwriting Binge, New York Playwrights. There are a few more. I think there's Cats. There's a low-cost paid service called Playwright Submission Helper. Mm-hmm. It's not too expensive. And then if I really want to be thorough, I can set up Google alerts with every kind of every imaginable search word, new plays, submission, playwright submit, on and on and on. And then there's another search service called Talkwalker, which is free. And so one can spend a great deal of time with these, hints. And the Talkwalker and the Google searches, about 9/10 of it is just nothing to do with play submission. So it could be a lot of work every day.
Sure.
That said, I did get one reading, I think, from one of my Google or Talkwalker searches that was probably valuable enough that made me happy that I did all this stuff looking for it.
Are there things to avoid? Are there certain festivals or certain competitions or things that you just are red flags? Anything that comes up where it's like, this isn't, no.
I submit most of things. I will think through whether I want to pay a fee or not, and almost that depends on my mood and where it is, and do I want to have an excuse to go to Nantucket? It's a little arbitrary. Fees would be one thing. Another thing is if they, if it's a prompt and I just don't, I won't write a play for too many prompts, maybe a New York theater, either a group I'm involved with or a New York theater, but I'm not going to write a special play if I don't have one already. If it's a small theater or a town I don't want to go to or whatever. I guess also if the wording of the submission is such where I don't like the personality behind it or something like that, where that's a red flag. I'll avoid that. There's been a couple of those, actually.
What's the most you'd pay for a competition?
Oh my goodness! For again, I guess if it was I don't know, for whatever reason, if it was some kind of visibility or, as I said, a place I really want to travel, or I'm just in a mood, I might pay $7 or $10 or $5. I have paid to enter the O'Neill is the big granddaddy.
That's what comes up a lot. What do they charge? Do you remember offhand? I should look this up so people know.
Off the top of my head, it might have been $35.
Oh,
and again,
okay.
There's controversy. People don't pay it, but other times I'll just say, no, forget it. I don't know where this is or who you are, and actors don't pay to audition, and I'm not going to pay to submit a script. I understand it's different for screenplay contests.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, since I'm not involved in the screenplays, but maybe a tradition. I don't know.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess the question is, I mean, like, why should it be any different? I mean, if it's a screenwriting competition, people are willing to pay, and in some of these, I think it can get up there with some of them.
My goodness.
You know, and so I'm just curious why plays don't receive the same.
That's true.
Consideration. I don't know. But I also think it depends on what you get in exchange as well.
Yeah, very much so. That's true.
Whether that's production or reading or financial compensation, which to me doesn't, I mean, what's the, you get some money, but how does that help your career, I guess?
Right. That's what I feel. Some of them I don't think even pay you anything. It just the only reward is getting the reading or production. And again, for a reading particularly, I would never pay any money. You
did a residency 4 times, if you will, right?
Oh, with Rising Sun. Yeah, I did 3.
Rising Sun and Djerassi. How do those work?
Well, there were.
How do you become a resident writer?
How do you become a resident writer? In Djerassi, they have, and again, I haven't checked their pandemic status. They have a retreat started by Carl Djerassi, who is a scientist, and he was still alive when I was there. I met him, and they pick. It's an artist colony. They pick people of different disciplines, including visual arts, to be there for a certain period of time. For me, it was a month. It's a very nice place out of Palo Alto, kind of in the hills. And the idea is you're picked, you go there for a month. The only ask of us is to do a presentation when we first get there, to introduce ourselves and talk about our discipline a bit. And in my case, I recruited some people to read my work with me. So that was fun. Since it was performance. And the rest of the time, you just get up and work in your studio, and they feed you meals, and you walk around and look at the scenery. So that was my month at Djerassi. And it's worthwhile. And I lived in New York at the time, so I particularly appreciated getting some open space. So
you're there for a month. They cover your meals and somewhere to live. And so how do you just log on to that and just what's the process? How do you?
Again, I haven't applied since this was pre-internet, but
okay.
I'm assuming you log on. I would just go to Djerassi, and it's DJERRASI, and look it up and apply.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely include a link down below when
that's a good
in
idea.
the show notes, definitely. But even still, even let's just say it's pre-internet, and what did you do? What were the requirements? What did you have to? Was there a submission fee? Did you have to send a sample of your work? How did Susan Goodell get chosen?
At the time, there was no fee, and I sent a sample of my work, and it was just as simple as that. And I got in the first time. And I will say, as a parenthetical, that it was a relatively new residency at the time I applied, and I think it's gotten more established, so it might be more competitive to get in now. Okay.
And was that a full length? Did you just send a couple pages?
I believe I sent in maybe my stumblings and beginnings of Hope Throws Her Heart Away, I think.
Okay.
And, that's what I sent in.
And then what about your 3 summers at Rising Sun?
Okay, that came about in a completely different way. They had a couple of calls for short plays under certain topics, and actually one was now that we talk about it, was at a bar. They had a series called Under Rehearsed, and I sent in I don't know what the prompt was or the call was or something, but I had something for the category, and I sent in a play called Everything But How I Got There, which is How I Got Here, which was about a stumbling guy in front of a bar, and they did the people did pay attention. I think most of the people were there for the reading, and they set up lights, and they did a good job of kind of getting people in the space of, we're going to listen to a play now. It was in Queens or in Brooklyn, doesn't matter. And then they had a second one that was a holiday play, and I happened to have a holiday play for it, a dysfunctional family dinner called No History. And from that, Akia asked me to be a resident playwright. So, and then she got grants where she did projects in houses on Governor's Island for 3 summers. And that's how I did that.
Where do you come up with your titles? Or how do you come up with your titles?
The title I did of the play you produced was called The Hour. And since I've evolved, because occasionally someone does my play without telling me. That's happened a few times. So I have I have alerts set up for the titles of my play, and once in a while I do searches. So I try to give it a unique title that'll show up in a search. You can't search The Hour, but you can search. Well, it hasn't been produced, but let's see. Our Part to Change Things is one of my titles. You can search for that, and found out a high school was doing that. So, I wanted to be unique, and B, I wanted to be a riddle. I think often.
Well, I want to go back to finding out your plays are being produced and you don't know it.
Yes.
Let's. What did you do? How did you approach that?
Well, in this case, my head is thinking of a friend, another playwright friend about my age, and she says, "I'm so happy to get a production. I'm completely nice about it," and I'm pretty nice too. It was a high school in New England. It was probably within driving distance. I might have actually gone to see the play. And
that would have been a great surprise. Hey, I'm here to see my play that you stole.
That's right. And actually, it's a digression. A high school, I won't name names, but a high school very near here stole a play from a local writer. A high school with a fantastic reputation stole a play from a local writer, and she found out about it too late. But in this case, I found out about it, I guess, a few months later. There was some other writers I'd seen around or seen on Facebook or seen their names, and maybe I knew one of them, I'm not sure. One of them I knew he'd be approachable, so I friended him on Facebook, and we both wrote the high school teacher at the same time and said, please ask permission, something like that. I don't know whether I asked for money. I ended up getting a little bit of money out of it. I didn't make a big deal. I tried to be cordial. So, but I did get a little money out of it after I flagged that, please don't do that.
Do you find this happens a lot to you?
It's only happened, has it happened? Maybe it's only happened once or twice, but people who have a lot of published plays say it happens with a few times in a season. Yeah, so it does happen.
Do you think it happens more like with high schools and stuff like that, where it's more like we're students, so?
I think so. It happens with high schools particularly. I don't know whether, it certainly can happen with community theaters as well. Someone just doesn't, maybe I don't know. I was going to say they buy the script and they think that's it, but their copyright notice is all over the place and licensing information. So they have to have skipped an awful lot to do something like that.
So we talked about resident writing, but you were also commissioned by Steppenwolf.
Yes.
How did that come about?
That was quite a while back, and it was back in the day where before they had done a lot of new plays, and they had some kind of contest where they wanted 2 scenes and maybe some other writing or something like that, but they wanted 2 scenes from what we were working on. And I sent that in and somehow won the contest, or was one of several writers who won the contest. And I'll say parenthetically again, Stephen Sater, who went on to co-write Spring Awakening was another. And I was very inexperienced at the time. And then it turned out they also were in a big dispute with the Dramatists Guild over, I can't even remember what, but they were in a big dispute with the Dramatists Guild. So there was a 1.5 year battle with the Dramatists Guild over the contract. And by the time I got there, the theater changed management, got whole different personnel, and they had a whole different program. Wow. So that kind of turned into a fizzle on a slow fuse.
So did it not transpire? Did it?
I got a table read, and I learned later I think they got some kind of grant for this program, but I got a table read, and the table read was not rehearsed, and it just turned into a fizzle. It was
that's disappointing.
Definitely, it was one of those moments where when I got the magic phone call, I was on top of the world, and it just completely unraveled and was on the bottom of the world. It took a while. I angsted over that experience for much longer than advisable, but
sure.
But on the other hand, I hope it immunizes me against other disappointments. Where I think something is going to be big and important, and it turns out to be a table read that went poorly.
How do you deal with rejection?
For the most part, my day job for about 20 years was public relations, which was putting together packets of material and pitching it to publications. And so I got a lot of rejections just in my day jobs, and that was just that was part of my job, is putting together. And as I got no one at my job ever said, "Now, how many publications did you pitch to get this thing in Good Housekeeping?" They didn't care as long as I got the mention in Good Housekeeping or the Wall Street Journal or wherever I got the mention. So just part of my job was to keep moving, keep going, and I just translate that into theater as well. I joke to myself, if I spend more than 30 seconds obsessing on a no, then I'm being self-indulgent. If it's an important opportunity or one I thought that I really was right for, maybe I'll spend a minute obsessing, saying darn or worse. But no, it's part of it. It's just keep churning.
So if you did this public relations for publications for 20 years, you obviously know how to package your plays and probably do a lot of things when you submit that a lot of people probably wouldn't even think of. So what's your process for that when you submit something? How do you sell it?
I try to keep it very short, and actually I try to set up the riddle again. Boy, I'm going to make myself sound very plebeian here, but when I was a child, I was rather obsessed with TV Guide, which by the by, I think had pretty good feature writing in it. And TV Guide, I don't know whether it still does, would have these bullet descriptions of, the episode coming up. And then the bullet descriptions always made you want to watch the episode. So that was maybe my template for I'd write enough, I'd put enough breadcrumbs in that I would hope people would want to read the play.
Can you give me an example?
Not off the top of my head. Maybe I'd have to.
Well, let's do this then. Let's say Hope throws her heart away. How would you pitch that, if you will, if you were submitting it, or you were throwing a letter?
Right. I mean, again, I would spend a lot of time crafting that little tidbit, but it would be something along the lines of a woman who tries to please everyone else, journeys to her own. I'm being inarticulate here, but
no, it's okay. I'm putting you on the spot. This is
absolutely, particularly since I would spend days working on pitch letters. But I know it had a woman trying to please everyone else in it, which just sets up a problem. Okay. And I will say that I've read books on. There's a simplistic book on advertising. It's not simplistic at all in a way. Old book called Tested Advertising Methods, which was about direct mail. Where they send you something and you would buy the commemorative plate, and how they would pitch you to do that. But and I'm not sure commemorative plate is a good example, but problem solution is definitely a time-tested formula. As you set up a problem, dilemma once again. The girl trying to please everyone else but herself. And eventually she learns to come into her own. Again, I'm not being careful crafter here.
No, it's great, because in problem solution, setting that up. Right. That's great in a presentation aspect, and it's great in a writing aspect as well. When I approach my writing, that's not something that comes to mind. I'm not looking at dilemma solution in particular, and that's to me good advice.
My first playwriting class with Laura Shamus, and incidentally in a kindergarten classroom, aptly, Laura told us our assignment was to either go to a play or TV or a movie, I believe, and come in and talk about why we thought it worked. And I think that's a really important thing to do, is to, particularly with things you enjoy, with things you think are successful, or if you think it's not successful, why didn't it work? And maybe how would you make it work? It's a screenplay, but I watched a bit of Stand and Deliver, the movie, when I was eating lunch today, and I was watching each scene and how it traveled from A to B. And there would be a problem at the beginning, or a conflict, or a clash, and by the end of the scene, there was some kind of resolution to the clash, or that spun the story forward.
What do you think the most important aspect of playwriting is, that you really have to? This is something that you have to know, or that this is like the most important thing to kind of have ingrained when it comes to writing?
Well, it's actually, again, probably universal to TV, movies, and plays, is the old, I think the stay tuned is something in it that makes you want to stay tuned. And, that piques our curiosity. That keeps us kind of off balance until we get to the resolution.
Do you have a formula for that when you write? Do you know when you're straying away and like you might be losing your audience? I mean, how do you know when you're not
How do I know when I'm
staying tuned, or that you might be letting your audience go? How do you stay?
Actually, I guess in some of my Zoom group things, I've watched some of my pieces succeed or not succeed and started to analyze why. Again, it's the dilemma or the riddle, and then it has to keep going forward with more complications. And I'm going to set a little analytical here. Objective stakes and obstacles. Or I think
what does that mean?
Okay, each one. Well, actors, I know. I think a lot of my education, besides taking all these classes, is listening to actors and what they have learned from their classes, and they often can put very clearly some mantra they learned from a teacher. And I think one of the most important thing is the character has to have objectives. And that's what I try to write for the actors. The character has to have something they're going for. So they're not playing jealousy. They're trying to win over Stanley, or trying to solve the crime, or trying to find the hidden treasure, or whatever. Again, I think you could probably look at almost any story, and you're going to find that.
Do each one of your characters have that, or just your main character?
Yeah, no, I think everyone has to have that, and if I've written it well, everyone has some kind of journey, just towards something else. I can't say I always succeed in that, but I try. Stakes, it's not just an objective. Okay, so you could have an objective. I want to have dinner tonight. It's not a very high objective. If I haven't eaten dinner in 3 days, then that wouldn't be a good play. It wouldn't be a great play, but it's a higher objective, or a higher stakes objective.
Sure.
So not only does a character want something, but then the audience, ideally, we want the audience to feel the character not only wants something, but it's important that the audience get it, to the audience that the character get it. And then obstacles. So what is stopping the character from getting what it is he or she wants? So I think these are three important components. And again, if I don't have that dilemma or those elements, then things kind of can fall by the wayside. And I've had it happen. Sometimes I'll start to set something up well, and then it just sort of fizzles. It doesn't sustain, or I didn't set it up well at all, where I don't have those elements. So that's what I look for, is to keep things going.
And then do you abandon it at that point if you find that I'm not executing this very well? Do you just like put it away for a while and come back, or?
Yeah, I'll put it away for a while, and sometime I do come up with solutions, and sometime I don't. There are a few things that I've just decided I just don't. This just doesn't pull me in, and it's not work. I've tried to fix this. I usually try to fix things a few times if I think there's something promising in it. But there are some things that I've left behind. Certainly.
How do you know when you're finished with something then?
Oh, well,
how long does it take you to finish a project? Or how long do you give yourself to finish a project? And then how do you know when you're done?
I don't give myself any time frame. If there's some kind of a contest or a submission or whatever, I might write to that time frame. But there's really absolutely, I guess that's the great thing about working for myself, and parenthetically, not this is not my income, certainly. But I have a play that's been produced twice and had a few readings, and Rising Sun is slated it, pandemic willing, for a reading in New York. So I'm rewriting it again. And this is something I'm working on in my Zoom group, even though it's been produced twice.
Why do you think that it needs rewriting?
When I'm looking at it, well, a couple of things. I found ways to make it higher stakes, more concise, more specific. And then as I'm going through it, my companions in the Zoom group are asking questions of me and helping me learn that there's more to excavate. There always could be more to excavate. Okay. So, and I also will say, with comedy, I can write something zany, but it has to have underneath it an engine of drama, if that makes sense. It has to do two things at once. Ideally, is be funny, ironic, quirky, whatever, but also have a foundation of truth in it. And so sometimes it's easy to get a little dancey and airy and forget the fact that I need to ground it in a way.
Sure. You've been published in quite a few books and whatnot. Talk about that process and how that came about.
Well, I would get always everything, except with the one exception of a 5-minute play that I just heard read in my workshop, has been produced, and I try to, for the most part, I try to at least see one production of every new play. I try, if I can, I send it locally. So I've either seen a good reading, at least a good reading, good staged reading, or a production before I feel it's ready to go into the world. And then these books, and again, things might have gotten disrupted in the pandemic, I don't know, have calls for scripts and, or emails, alerts or whatever, and I send it to the editor. Again, I haven't looked into this since the pandemic.
Sure, and that's okay, because I'm sure that things still apply. Mm-hmm. So, like when you submitted to the Best American Short Plays, which I think that almost every actor probably has a copy of one of those years. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, it's been going on since the 30s.
Yes, right.
But, and I think I've got like 90, 91, and then like 92, 93, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. But so that's been around for a while. So did you just look them up and then send it on over? Or
yeah, and actually these anthologies with the dates on them, they have some requirements that it has to have been first production in a certain period of time. So so I have to look at their requirements. But when something gets produced, then I try to look up the anthologies and what who's looking for what and submit, if I'm happy with it. If I'm not happy with the production, or I'll put it this way, if I'm not happy with the play, I'm not going to submit it to production.
Sure, of course.
To a publication, rather.
Right. That's completely understandable. So once you're happy with it, then you sent it in. Did you have to, you had to send a letter with it? What were the requirements as far as being considered?
Right. I would fit in with the time requirements. I think I might have sent a brief cover letter saying when and where it was done.
Okay.
And if it's chosen, then they ask for the cast list and more specifics and so forth.
Yeah, I find those Best American Short Plays interesting because they are by the year, but there's a couple issues or volumes that I've got where it's like, this was first performed in like 1983. I'm like, well, this book is for 1992 and 1993. I'm not quite sure how that qualifies the Best American Short Play for this time frame. So
yeah,
you guys are a little off.
A little fudging, and I know. I won't mention any names. I know someone who was in something, and I know his play was done before. And I know writers have been known to kind of rebirth their plays from time to time, and say there's kind of a big deal made about new productions in many cases. And
Yeah.
And you think, gee, if it was done, it's done for an audience of 20 and Waxahachie. Why do we consider that a premiere? Can I
Right.
have another
Yeah.
premiere or something?
Fair enough, right? Well, you can get away with it a little bit sometimes. You can, you can get your East Coast, West Coast premiere, world premiere. There's so many different.
And what is a workshop? If it's minimal props, we can call it a workshop.
Right. Because you said that you won't submit it unless you've seen it. Are there productions of your work that you've seen where it's just like, oh my God, what did you do?
Oh, yes. Yes, that's true. I've had those.
And do you realize that's not your writing and it's just the performance or the interpretation or?
Yes.
Do you have any anecdotes of stories like that?
Yes, again. I've had plays that definitely were the writing and maybe the performing topped it off, or there was a weakness in the play and the casting played to all the weaknesses rather than counterbalancing them. All the above. And I will say I've seen plays where maybe the acting wasn't great, but the community around the particular theater was still very supportive, and the audience had a good time. So usually there is something meritorious about almost every outing. Maybe there are a few exceptions to that, but in most cases, I say I got something from it. I've also seen maybe a 2 or 3 character play, and 2 of the actors were beginners, but there was one actor that just knocked it out of the park, and the audience loved him or her so much that it kept the play afloat. So there's all sorts of variations, and it's part of the game, and I just try to be good-natured about it. And go back home and see is there anything else that I need to do on my end to make this better or make it understood.
Have you ever found that was the case with anything did you go back? I'm like, yes. Okay, now that I've seen it, I realize, and now I can go back and fix it.
Yes. And also there might, what's also happened is I might have something as small as a line of dialogue that will lead an actor astray. And if it's something easy to fix, I fix. Again, there's so many variables and so many decisions to make, and I'm never going to cover everything. But if it's an easy fix, if it's something that might mislead people, I will change it.
There was somewhere I was going to go with that. Do you tell people? Do you let them know that you're coming, that you're the playwright, or do you just kind of reveal it at the end?
Oh no!
When you go, or just like keep it quiet the whole time and just go. It's like, no, that was a good night, and just leave peacefully.
I let people know ahead of time, and I try to find people to not necessarily. Sometimes usually not the cast, but introduce myself, and I will win it. And some of the awkward times is if I show up very late in a rehearsal, if I haven't been there, that people feel. I've seen people feel self-conscious, actors feel self-conscious, and I try to be as low-key as possible and as appreciative as possible so people don't feel on guard or self-conscious because the playwright is there.
Yeah, in Play Noir and even with the Collegiate Playwright Festival, I usually don't let the cast know until after. Really? Not until after.
Right.
That way they do get to meet the playwright after, but I don't want them to know before the performance because I don't want them to feel self-conscious or like be a little concerned or and I mean I'm nervous as well, just even as a producer and director, when
right.
We've had the playwrights come and show up, and I just I hope that our interpretation is correct and that they enjoyed our staging of it.
Well, one thing I found is that in cases of workshops or whatever, again, I workshop things both out in Connecticut and in New York, where I'm not only invited but encouraged to be part of the process. Usually it's a reading where I'm actually actively rewriting. And if I am in the room the whole time, I'm just I'm just part of the furniture after a while, and people are not so worried about my opinion. And I don't want people to be worried about my opinion. I want them to be thinking about their craft and all their problems to solve, and not what I think.
Do you enjoy the workshop process?
Yes, very much. I mean, I will say it's a very slow barn raising, and
how does it work? How does a workshop work? How do you workshop a play?
I'm trying to think. Well, again, I guess I've done mainly readings out here, but there was a group in the city called Fresh Produced, and they had readings at the previous drama bookshop in the basement. And so I was in on it, and I actually did some active. Yeah, I actually did some active rewriting. Another was a series called Philly's Primary Stages, and it's about a 2 or 3 hour train ride to get to Philly. And I was required to go to at least one rehearsal, and I would do some active rewriting, and I enjoyed that. Again, for reading, usually the actors didn't mind my making changes, and I would get input from them.
Sure, but I mean, how does that work? How does the workshop? I mean, do you just like show up with a scene and then like give it to them, and then you or do you show up with a full play that's it might need some work. I got to hear it. How do you workshop it?
Short plays again. I'm trying to think. As I workshop as I workshopped anything longer, I guess I probably will with Rising Sun. But I show up with the best work I can, best I can do at the time, smartest as I can be. And then they read it, and I see them stumbling, or I see something that they don't seem to be getting a grasp on. And I might ask, depending on the circle of people in the room, I might either ask the director, or there are other situations where it's a free-for-all and everyone could just throw in their ideas and ask them and try to be as politely as I can, is that okay with you? And do you want me to change that or whatever? And sometimes they say, no, let me work on it. And it's just a back and forth. I'm doing a lot of watching the actors and how they're working with the material. And do they seem comfortable? Do they seem to have an objective? Do they seem to be clear? Is it's emotionally specific enough for them? And then I'll make changes that way.
And you're open to their advice, and if they have suggestions, or is this like, are you catching it on your own?
Both. Okay. Both. Sometimes it comes from them, and sometimes it comes. I'll see things. I can't say proportions.
Do you ever find yourself at odds with one person's, any particular person's opinion, where it's like you're so way off, and we're not in agreement on this? I think you're off base with that interpretation or anything like that. When you've gotten advice from actors and stuff like that.
I can't think of any specific example, but I think I had thought ahead how I would handle that, which is saying, okay, let's see both versions. Okay. I think I would do it that way. One thing I do see is, I've been in situations where actors want to improv, and sometimes that's good and they have good suggestions, and sometimes it throws what I'm trying to do off track. And
that's during the workshop, or have you seen that in actual performances as well?
Oh my goodness, I've seen that in productions too, and that's awkward. And I guess I haven't had something run long enough where I could have to try and figure out a way to put a stop to it. But again, I don't want to stifle people's enthusiasm or the actors' ownership of the material. So I try to do it very carefully.
Is there a playwright who inspires you, whose work you just love and you try to emulate or anything like that? Or
Well, because I got started in Denver, I didn't have the influence of being in a larger city where someone was rating as an art, in that where someone was prominent in that respect. So I never tried to be David Mamet or whatever. I do feel I probably have channeled from time to time when I was very young, and I never saw them I never saw performance, but when I was in college and, in the 60s and early 70s, I thought reading Ian Nesco was a neat thing to do, and it was so chaotic and absurdist and all that sort of stuff. And of course, I grew up in the, watching black and white TV in the 50s and 60s. And so I saw in Jack Benny and all those old comics. So if nothing else, I'm sure I'm channeling people from time to time. Maybe I've tried a little bit of Durang's non sequitur, but I find I can't. It doesn't work to emulate him, though I do have sort of a quirky style. But it never hurt. It never has worked to copy anyone, but I do certainly think I've channeled from time to time.
Sure. Now, you haven't done any, I'm going to use the word formal education in playwriting. It's not like you went to college for playwriting.
No, I don't have an MFA. I don't think I've never taken a credit course, I will say, but I've studied, I don't know, I counted it up, 12 to 14 teachers. I did take classes at everything from ensemble studio theater to Playwrights Horizons, primary stages. I've taken classes there. And they have a specific name for the school I can't give you immediately, but so I have taken at several established theaters in New York. But it's not the same as a college MFA program, which is sort of came along later, and I didn't think I could go back there and go back to get a college degree like that.
Are you working on anything right now?
Well, I am rewriting. I hope toward the end of the rewrite of Heels Overhead. I wrote, sometime back, the first act of something that was sort of influenced by our political climate. It was a very indirect influence. And I hope to pick that up again. And I have some short plays that I read in my Zoom group that I have notes about to make some tweaks and improvements. And they have a whole long list of ideas to narrow down.
Good. And do you find that did the lockdown and the pandemic really discourage you, or did you take advantage of the opportunities? Like, I've got this extra time to really hunker down and write, or did you just kind of throw in the towel for a year and just say forget it?
I didn't do as much. I feel terribly guilty. I didn't do as much as I wanted because I spent a lot of time just on logistics and obtaining supplies and reading. Is very volatile and political during that period. So I spent an awful lot of time reading and following stories and things like that. But I did do things with Rising Sun. I wrote, I think, about 4 short plays. Yes, and I did, there was a time where there was a power outage. I have a generator, but it cut off all my communications, internet, TV, cable.
Oh, wow.
All I had was FM radio, and this was during the pandemic, so I couldn't go to a restaurant or go anywhere in public. I had nothing but an FM radio and power to turn on my computer. So I actually did some rewriting, and I wish I had the discipline just to cut all the cords and do that. After I got rid of the kind of the detox thing of, I can't check the news, I settled down and did some rewriting during that period.
Good. And on one final note on that aspect, what's your writing habits? How do you keep going? Do you have a staunch schedule that you stick to?
Oh, I wish I did.
What keeps you motivated then? What keeps you going?
Well, I think right now, particularly being in my Zoom group and being in groups or being in a class, again, having peers who are doing the
Sure.
same thing, having the same struggle. And, that has to be selected carefully because, groups and leadership and so forth is better than other, but I'm very happy where I am. And just having peers and knowing that we're all going through the same thing. And that keeps me somewhat productive, though I can't say that I'm up with
Sure.
the bobbins and at my computer.
Right.
By any means.
Right.
It's sporadic.
Well, we all got to keep it going one way or another, right?
That is right. That's right.
So, well, Susan, I really appreciate you being in the Playwright Spotlight and sharing everything that you've learned with us, and hopefully we'll get the opportunity to work again sometime down the road.
I hope so. Yes.
I really appreciate it. And we hope that you enjoyed this episode. We appreciate you being here as well. If you enjoyed this episode of the Playwright Spotlight, be sure to like and subscribe down below. Leave a comment if you like. And if you listen to us on your favorite podcatcher, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review, as we've said before. And until next time, and until we meet again, keep writing.